All right, back at it, up and at 'em. Opening line, Elite Fantasy Sports Network, Corey and Benny. So we were talking about the Eastern Conference playoff situation. So the Heat can still make the playoffs.
Yeah, the Heat are – so right now the way it is, the 8th seed is currently the Detroit Pistons are 39-41 with 2 games left. Charlotte and Miami are both right behind them at 38-42. So if Miami wins the next 2 games and Detroit loses and Charlotte loses, Miami's going to be 40-42, and they'll sneak into the 8th spot. So Charlotte and Miami are actually tied in the 9th spot right now. Honestly, I don't know this off the top of my head. I got to go double check on who has the tiebreaker between those teams. But right now, basically, the Pistons are in the driver's seat. If they win out, they make the playoffs. If the Pistons lose one of those games, they open the door for either Miami or Charlotte, assuming that they win out. Now, Miami has a tough last 2 games, though. They play – one of them is Philly. I forget who the other team is. I think it's the Nets. They play the Nets and Philly, so they're playing 2 playoff teams. Here's the thing that's going to be interesting, though, Corey. With Orlando clinching yesterday, does Orlando play their starters in that last game against
exactly. That's what I was trying to figure out, too.
So Charlotte might wind up playing like the Orlando B team because basically Orlando's not really moving up or down anywhere. They're going to end up as a 6, 7 seed, maybe even an 8 seed if they lose the last 2 games. So, but one way or another, they already clinched. They're in the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see because it may come down on the last day where Orlando's sitting their starters is the thing that gets Charlotte into the playoffs.
That'll be interesting. Man, you can't – there is no game 83 in basketball, though, right? Like, you can't have – it would go to tiebreakers, correct?
I don't know the entire tiebreaker thing. I'm sure that it could end up that way, but it would end up that way after, like, head-to-head records were tied and division records were – there's like a whole string of things they use for the tiebreaker. So you would really need, like, 4 or 5 things to be tied exactly in order for them to be like, well, I guess we have to have a – and I don't even know if it's a playoff. It might even come down to like a coin toss or something like that.
Could be, but I know that, and I think if not next season, 2 years from now, there will be the 7-10 and the 8 and 9. The 7 and 10 games will be on Thursday. The 8 and 9 games will be on Friday. Then the playoffs will start that Saturday, Sunday.
You know what else was interesting that happened this weekend? So the Dallas Mavericks winning that game this weekend actually kind of screwed them right now. So with that whole Porzingis trade, there was a pick that was there. The pick is only protected if it's a top 5 pick, right? So if they were one of the worst 2 records in the league, they were guaranteed a top 5 pick because even if they don't win the lottery, they're going to end up at number 5 either way. Now, though, I think they're the 3rd or 4th worst record in the league, which means that they could end up with the 6th or 7th pick, which they would have to give to Atlanta. If they would have lost out and had a top 5 pick that's protected, Atlanta would have got their pick next year, which assuming you have a top 5 player added to the team along with a healthy Porzingis, that the pick next year would have been lower. So they kind of screwed themselves. If they end up with a 6 or 7 pick, they're going to wind up having to give that to Atlanta, and they're not going to get a draft pick this year. And then next year when they're better, they're going to wind up with a lower pick. So they may have screwed themselves by winning that game this weekend.
That's going to be interesting to see how that one plays out. Last night I was watching that Showtime series on Action, and they were talking about fantasy a lot in it. They had said a lot of yesterday's action, a lot of the documentary, a lot of yesterday's episode of the Action documentary on Showtime was about DFS. And once they had your man Crowley, Crowley, him and his brother. His brother's Chipotle addict.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you got to use their screen names. Otherwise, I don't know who you're talking about there.
His brother's Chipotle addict. I forgot what his screen name was. It was, I don't remember what his screen name was. But his cat's out of Chicago, whatever. And they more or less spent the Sunday with him. And, I mean, son, he was like, he plays for one big Sunday a season.
Yeah. Well, I tell this to people all the time. Like, when you're playing DFS, your month, your season, your year usually comes down to your big hits. Like, it's a lot like the stock market. Anybody who invests in stocks, there are basically 6 days a year where the stocks go up big or down big that either make or break your year when you're a stock trader. And DFS is the same thing. Like, most of the time you're breaking even or making a little bit or losing a little bit, right? Like, especially if you're a multi-entry guy, you put in your 150 entries whatever level you're playing at, $20 level, $30 level, $100 level. Like if you're playing at the $20 level, you put in 150 entries, you're putting $3,000 up. If you don't hit one of those top prizes, chances are you probably lost a little bit of money on the day. Now, you may cash 30 or 40 lineups, but if you're cashing 30 or 40 lineups that are paying you, 40 or 50 bucks each, you laid out 3,000 to win like 1,800, 2,200, something like that. So really, it's like a $700, $800 loss. You're going to have a lot of days like that where you lose a little bit of money, or you cashed a bunch of lineups and you won a little bit of money, $3,000 or $4,000 from 3,000 invested. Where you really see if you're going to have a 6-figure year or a big 5-figure year is when you have that big hit for $50,000, or you have that big hit for $20,000. Those are the days that actually end up at the end of the year being what makes or breaks you. I mean, like, you look at a lot of these guys that go to the live finals, right? A lot of these guys that qualify for the live finals, they're dropping $50,000, $60,000 in qualifiers.
Son, he was like, I have to qualify for the live final. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That particular Sunday, Benny, Son legit lost $120,000. And he was like, this is most Sundays. He was like, but at some point, I'm going to win $300,000, $400,000, and that's going to be, okay, that's my season right.
Well, think about it. If you lose $100,000, look at football season, right? There's basically 4 Sundays in a month. If you lose $100,000 the first week, $50,000 the second week, $100,000 the third week, and then you hit for $400,000 for the month, you're up $150,000. Now, it's not a straight path to get there, and it doesn't look real pretty. But that's the other thing too. When you're multi-entering, and you have the nuts, you don't just have the nuts on the lineup that won you a ton of money. You also have 15 or 20 other lineups that might have finished. Like, you see these guys will finish 1st, 7th, 8th, 9th, 15th, 22nd, 34th, and 57th on the same day. So that's the day where you just completely blow it out of the water. Like you said, he'll have a week where he makes $400,000 and makes up for losing $100,000 2 or 3 weeks before.
No doubt about it. You want to be on the right side, though. Sign up to EliteFantasy.com. Get ready for DFS baseball rolling right now. Then you got the basketball covered, and, of course, the NFL will be coming very soon. It's the NBA tonight. Nothing going on. Tonight is all about the big game out in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the national championship between Virginia and the Texas Tech Virginia and the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Virginia get here after disappointment last year. Texas Tech, I guess, is the shocker to be in the field coming out of the Big 12 as a 3 seed. Benny, it's like with Texas, with Auburn that got eliminated. Controversial couple calls at the end of the game. But, Benny, it's just like what we do. It always comes back around. Mm-hmm. Either the second, third game of the tournament, that first Thursday, Auburn was on the ropes versus New Mexico State.
Yep.
Auburn goes to shoot the 3 in the corner. The guy lunges. The referee calls the foul. Puts Son on the line for 3 shots. That's how they won that game. The same way they lost the game this past week. It's give and take. It's nothing to complain about as far as the double dribble goes. That's a call that's hard to miss in real time. I'm not blaming the refs for that.
So here's my thing with the double dribble, and we were kind of talking about this when it happened in real time, right? So if you're a referee, you look up at the clock and you see that they still have fouls to give. So you're waiting for first contact right away to blow that whistle. Now, he definitely lost the ball going behind his back, but the guy guarding him also grabbed his jersey and kind of hold him there. Now, you could say one thing happened before the other, but in real time, in like a bang-bang play like that, if I'm the referee, I'm sitting on my whistle waiting for the foul because you knew it was going to happen. So, yeah, that might have been a double dribble, but there was also some contact there. Even though I watched the replay. He didn't blow the whistle on the initial contact. He blew it after he got the ball and then started dribbling again, which was definitely a double dribble. But in the overall scheme of things, that was definitely a foul, and that's what they were trying to do. I think that's the more controversial call than the one at the end. People that were saying that foul at the end shouldn't have been called, that was a clear foul.
That's a foul.
Like, he cut the guy's legs out, didn't let him land. Like, that's a foul in the first minute of the game. And if it's a foul in the first minute of the game, it has to be a foul in the last couple seconds of the game. So I had no problem with that foul call. We've seen this now happen in the tournament, though, like 3 or 4 times, Corey, where a shooter in the corner is taking a last-second shot to win a game, and somebody's taking his legs out or fouling him. Dude, just stand there with your hands up. We talked about this. I think it was actually the Virginia game. It was Virginia against Purdue. We talked about this. Like,
Yep.
When that guy is taking that shot in the corner, it's a low percentage shot with your hands in the face. Is he going to knock it down sometimes? Yeah, but it's a lower percentage that he shoots that shot than it is for you to foul him and put him on the line, especially a kid like Kyle Guy. He went up to the line like there was no doubt in his mind.
He was the only person in the gym. He was the only person in the gym. Yep, 100%. I think where the fans can get it wrong is some people watch NBA basketball, and the NBA in the last seconds, they really call that. But that is the A to B rule. If you jump from point A and land at point B, that's a foul. So there you go right there. But we've seen Steph get knocked down on that shot many times, and no foul is called. But it's totally different, you know what I'm saying, when you're in the NBA as opposed to college.
Most people don't even realize the NBA has different rules than college basketball does, and there's also different norms about what gets called and what doesn't. No offense, 2/3 of the people who go to the hole in the NBA walk. If they were playing college basketball, a lot of those moves are walks. In the NBA, though, you're allowed 2 steps. In college, you're allowed 1.5. That second foot can't come down before you get rid of the ball. In the NBA, it can. That's why you got people doing these crab dribbles and around the back step backs that anybody who's played basketball up until, the college level in their life is well, that's a walk. You can't get away with that anywhere but the schoolyard. But in the NBA, it's actually not a walk because the way the rule is written, they get that extra step.
I talked to Tim Donaghy about and a couple other cats about the move, the James Harden step back. And they was like, it looks like he's walking, but they're like he's not walking when he shoots that shot. What do you think?
I mean, again, NBA-wise rules, it's not. But you can't the way it is once you pick up the ball, you're allowed to take one full step, and then you can pick up that second leg, but that second leg can't come down in college. In the NBA, you can. So when he does that move, it's almost like, it's almost like a jump. In the NBA, in college, you can jump stop, or you can you could do the crab step or something like that. In college, that's actually a walk. You're not allowed to take the step and then jump stop. In the NBA, you are. So when he does that step back, it's really just like a jump stop that he's taking at the NBA level. So it's not a walk according to the way the NBA rules are written.
No doubt about it. So trust me, it will be under plenty of scrutiny over the course of the next couple of weeks because there's nothing that draws the ire of the officials like the NBA playoffs because every single city thinks the referees are out to get them, and then you'll see a lot of stuff going on. We got to get Tim Donaghy to join us on here one day because I'm quite sure there's going to be a lot of controversial calls going down the stretch. As far as the other contest goes, Michigan State got beat up pretty good. Texas Tech. Excellent job, Texas Tech, defensively in that game. But tonight, Benny, you got UVA and Texas Tech. The number I'm looking at right now is Virginia is getting 1.5 points. The total, though, Benny, 118.
Yeah, so this is the lowest total in basically NCAA tournament history, or at least, in the current era. You don't know what it was back when, Army was playing Purdue or something for the finals 30, 40, 50 years ago. But I mean, in the common era, this is the lowest total that we've had for a championship game. There's a lot of stuff that's going on in this final that is one of those things that you've never seen before. Neither Virginia nor Texas Tech has ever been to a final, so we're gonna have somebody win a national championship today that's never won a national championship before. Again, you got the 118 total. A lot of these games in recent years have been going to the under. I think it's something like 7 of the last 9 have ended up at the under. But those unders have been 135, 145, North Carolina. Yeah, North Carolina Gonzaga was 140 something and it went under, but the game was 70 something to 60 something. So there was a lot of points scored. This could be a game that finishes, Corey, 58, 56 or something like that. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I wanted to take the under, but that's a really, really low number, 118, man.
And I agree with you 100%. That's a real low number. I'm going to be taking the over. I'm a money line Virginia. I'm going to take the over. I'm going to see if I can find a parlay to put with it. That's the way that I'm looking at it right now. That number is real low. But as far as what I'm seeing, the money is on the under.
Yeah, I mean, you do have 2 of the best defensive teams in college basketball this year. Yeah, you have 2 of the best defensive teams in college basketball this year. So, I mean, there have been other totals at 120 or under, so it's not crazy that this total is there. It's just we're not used to seeing 2 teams in a national championship game in an era where a lot of basketball is being played up and down right now and a lot of threes are being shot and teams are putting up 70, 80 points routinely, we're just not used to seeing two tough defensive-minded teams in the finals. It may not be the kind of final that the average fan is going to like, but the basketball fan is going to appreciate the defense and the rebounding and, the nuances of the game that these two teams play.
I'm going to be watching it.
Oh, I'm definitely watching it. There's no NBA tonight, so I have no excuse not to. I'm going to spend all day looking at MLB stats to get me ready for MLB season, and then I'm going to watch the game tonight once it comes on.
There you go right there. Better, I think everybody's known or heard about it right now. It's a bettor that put $1,500 down back in November on a ticket of Texas Tech to win the national championship. He's sitting on a $300,000 ticket. Obviously, this has become a story over a couple of days. Des Bryant, who's a Texas Tech basketball fan, tried to buy the ticket for $50,000. He shot Des Bryant down.
Oh, yeah,
another company tried to buy the ticket for $100,000. He shot them down. He said he's going to let it ride. Obviously, I'm quite sure he had to hedge this. Benny, how would you hedge this?
Well, I mean, like this is when you should be hedging, right? Because this is a significant amount of money. I think it was 15 to win 300, right?
$300,000.
All right, so I mean, basically, you got a $285,000 win if Texas Tech wins. So this is a very easy one to hedge. I mean, you look at Virginia, you're going to be able – Virginia's like minus 120 or something right now.
125 is the latest I saw.
I mean, basically what you do is you go to a loan shark right now, right, and you borrow $100,000. You put that $100,000 on Virginia. If Virginia wins, you're going to walk away with about $180,000. So you put down $115,000. You pay the loan shark back his $5,000. You walk away with $60,000 in profit. If Texas Tech wins, you win $300,000. You use $100,000 of that plus 5%, so $105,000 to pay back the loan shark. You paid $15,000 up front, and you walk away with $180,000. So you can hedge it to give yourself either a $60,000 win or a $180,000 win. The dumbest thing to do when you have this much money on the line is not to hedge it, because now if Texas Tech loses, you walk away with nothing.
That's crazy.
When you could have guaranteed yourself at least $60,000 to $180,000.
Would you, instead of going to the loan shark, would have sold the ticket for $100,000?
No, because basically, if you're selling this ticket for $100,000, you're better off. You're going to win 180 or you're going to win 60. You could actually make the money. You could set the money up so that you would win 100 anyway if Virginia wins, and you'd probably win like 115 or 120 if Texas Tech wins. So really, it doesn't make any sense. You're still better off hedging. Yeah. I mean, again, this is all math. Like if you were lucky enough to be in this situation, you sit down with your calculator and you figure out how much you would have to bet in order to basically walk away with at least whatever the number is. There's a break-even point too, where you could say, all right, no matter what happens here, if I bet, and again, I'd have to sit down and do the math, but if I bet like $140,000 on UVA right now, if UVA wins, I walk away with a buck, 20 in profit. And if Texas Tech wins, I walk away with a $120 in profit or whatever it is. There's a break-even point that you could actually figure out, and that would be how much money you would have to bet. So to me, like in order for this guy to sell the ticket, he probably would have needed to get – I mean, the ticket's worth is going to be probably about – Texas Tech is the underdog here. The ticket is probably worth – about $160,000, $170,000.
That's what I was figuring too. I think Des Bryant came in with that low ball offer. You know what I'm saying? Somebody raised the offer up to $100,000, but Son said he's letting it ride. But it definitely would not be a smart thing to hedge it. Tonight, like I said, I'm going Michigan State. I'm going Virginia on the money line. I'm going to take the over. I'm also going to put a smaller bet on Jarrett Culver to win the most outstanding player, just in case Texas Tech does win, because my FanDuel account cannot take another beating like it took over the past 2 days.
Well, that's actually a smart hedge, because you figure if they win, like Culver's been their leading scorer all year. I think the kid Maroney actually had more points last game. He shot the ball really well. He had like 20-something. But for the most part, I mean, Culver's been their guy all year. So if they win, he's the most likely guy to win the MVP. I think it's easier to look at him as the most likely MVP than it is to try to decide between Guy and Jerome and Hunter.
Exactly. Hunter. They got too many on that side. You know what I'm saying? So I know Culver, if Texas Tech wins, Culver will get it. He's at plus 170 right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook. So that's the way that I make sure I have a little bit of action tonight. Or at least I know that I'm not going home busted. Did the same thing with Alabama and Clemson. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I was heavy on Alabama. But my last bet was, let me put a little something on Trevor Lawrence. You know what I'm saying? And that one ended up working out pretty well. So that's how I'm playing it. Got a lot going on this week, Benny. A national championship, NBA playoff start, the Masters, not to mention, for all of you who like to bet on the National Hockey League, their playoff start this week also. So we got you covered right here on the opening line all week long. As far as the big piece of chicken goes to start off the week, I'm giving my BPOC to Hammerin' Hank Aaron. 45 years ago today, hit home run number 715. I think that record is still standing. And that record would not be broken because the only person that could have broke that record was never able to stay healthy enough to do it. That would have been the kid, Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah, so Corey, you know me, man. My big piece of chicken today goes to a guy who I want to give props to because, he owns a radio station that now has 5,000 Twitter followers. So I wanted to give him props for getting over that 5,000 Twitter follower mark because I heard that he's got a book coming out. All right, so for those of you who don't know, Lou Mayon, the boss over at FNTSY Radio, is going to write a book about how all these guys that work in the fantasy industry are ungrateful bastards because they no longer work for him. And he can't figure out why nobody likes to work for him and why nobody wants to be there. So Lou Mayon getting over 5,000 Twitter followers for FNTSY Radio, which in all honesty is about a third of what I have, about a third of what you have, about a fifth or sixth of what guys like Sealy and all these other people who used to work for him have. So I want to give him the big piece of chicken because he's going to write a book about how, he made the careers of Jake Sealy and Pat Mayo and guys like you and guys like me. And really, I mean, we all owe Lou so much that, the guy, at the least we could do is give him the big piece of chicken for all that he's done for the fantasy industry. Because, this guy is like a titan of the fantasy industry, right? Like, where would the fantasy industry be without Lou Mayon? I don't understand it. And do me a favor, Lou, from now on, keep my name out your mouth, son.
There you go, right there. I'm about to say the finishing line. That was the finishing line right there. But this has been the opening line. That is the big piece of chicken. One goes to Hank Aaron. The other goes to the great Lou Mayon. Over 5,000 Twitter followers at FNTSY Radio. Yeah, Benny. We out, my man.
Good way to end it. Peace.
No doubt.